A massive win at Bramall Lane. Delighted to be joined by Paul, who you may know from the Chronicles, to chat through what was a very wet but wonderful afternoon in Sheffield. Happy Monday evening, everybody. Welcome into the From the Firefly podcast. My name is Callum Alston, and tonight I get to be the co-host, as I'm joined by the legend that is Paul Davenport from the Charlton Chronicles. Emma was supposed to be on this evening, but she's aggravated her back. But she'll be on Wednesday, so it's a double lot of the Chronicles this week, which is quite exciting. But how are you doing, Paul?
I was going to say double lot of the Chronicles. I can only apologise, Callum, but no, thanks for having me on. Real privilege. If you don't mind, you obviously indulged me wearing my Chronicles gear. As the Browns won yesterday, surprisingly, but this is about the round ball, so obviously just thought to sort of say that I was chuntering to Steve before the pod went out last night. The Browns are going to lose again, but suddenly they actually won it in the last second field goal. Just how you like it, but this is obviously about the round ball. This is your podcast, so let's get cracking on about Charlton.
Well, I mean, to be fair, you had a better Sunday even than me. I have to watch the Raiders every weekend, and that's just a proper ruiner.
Commiserations.
That offensive line pains me about as much as watching Michael Hector and Terrell Thomas stroll around the pitch did. But let's chat happier memories. Let's chat happier memories for me. Tantualo Afe, last minute goal. And Lloyd Jones, very unlucky to not score from 2 yards in the ground. I have no idea how he made the first save, and then I have even less of an idea of how he made the second. But I thought we deserved that on the balance of play. What did you think?
Absolutely. I mean, I thought we were the better side for large parts of it. And we talked on the Chronicles about weathering the storm. Well, there was the biblical deluge, but there was no storm to weather it. I don't know what you thought. I mean, I was quite disappointed in Sheffield. I mean, you can argue that we kept them quiet, but I still felt with some of the people that they had restored to the line, particularly Gustav Hamer, that they'd actually really come at us. I didn't really feel they did. And when they did, obviously, I think Thomas Kaminski's handling was pretty assured in that wet weather. So no, I felt we were good for the win.
I think there's two things you brought up there. Firstly, I think that the reason we made them look a little bit toothless, now the stats say that they've been pretty toothless all season, was that basically we took Connor Coventry and man-marked Hamer out of the game for most of it. At first, I thought that Coventry was out of position for the first sort of 10 or 15 minutes. I was chatting to my mate. I was going, he doesn't look right. My mate was going, he doesn't look right either, but it's because Hamer was sort of playing slightly off the wing there where Wilder likes to play him. And he just he did this thing where basically man-marked him. He did that sort of classic, Sir Alex Ferguson, Jason Park thing, where you basically just take their best player and have a guy with a bunch of energy run around with him. But other than a shot in that first half, which was deflected for a corner, Hamer barely touched the ball in our final third, and I thought that was tactical rather than sort of him having a bad day at the office. On Kaminski, I think that's why you buy him. I posted and I was wrong because it turns out another player we'll talk about in a minute, Reece Burke, actually gets the block in. I thought he'd made a cracking stop in the second half, but actually Burke's knee gets in the way.
Yeah.
But Kaminski's handling in weather like that, was really, really important. There was a corner that came in where he got fouled. And quite frankly, he came and flapped at it, but he came and flapped at it in such a way that as soon as contact was made, it was going to be a foul. And that's the sort of stuff that I think that you need in championship games away from home. On that, because for me, man of the match came between sort of two players. I know Charlton gave it to James Bree with the assist for the goal. Lovely cutback, lovely brought the ball down. Wonderful goal kick from a goalkeeper who supposedly can't distribute. Miles Lee-Burn beats their £9 million former Millwall player, not in the air, sort of flat on the ground. Harvey noticed a lovely knock on forward.
Yeah.
And then Bree with that lovely touch brings it inside, plays it across the goal. Although a bit too close to the goalkeeper for my comfort. But for me, I thought Reece Burke was absolutely exceptional on Saturday. I know a lot of people like Greg Doherty as well. I'd say I thought Coventry did a heck of a job. Stewart's come in and said, Bell man of the match for me. I think you could argue Bell's been man of the match for most games this season. That's why
True.
I've sort of had him as the best signing so far. But for me, I thought Burke was. I mean, I know Luton fans said his injury history is the problem, but if you could design a perfect Premier League centre back, one that's about 6'4", who's quick, who's big but not so big that he's not mobile, and basically blocks anything and everything that goes anywhere near him, you can see why they said if he's fit,
his friends seem to make him more
Ferrari,
aerodynamic as well, doesn't it? To be fair, but no, I mean we obviously saw him that one outing at Dartford, and you can say, well, okay, it was only Dartford with respect, but you can. I mean, I'm obviously not well versed in analysis and whatever, but I go put a lot of store in the sight test, and I just felt he was incredibly elegant. He was obviously very well organised. He went straight in, ordering people about. Obviously, really self-assured. He's not a wallflower, that's for sure. But obviously, the key question is, can he do it? On a Saturday or a wet Saturday in Sheffield in the Championship, and he was great. He was. I think he was elegant. Really, he was very good indeed. I mean, Doc was probably my favourite player. Josh was just somewhere in the vicinity, but I think Reece was excellent. I think him and Bell have been fantastic additions. And you touched the injury history there. If we can keep him fit, I mean, there may be matches where he gets taken away because he's not required. But as I say, if we can keep him fit, if he plays like that, and Amari plays like that the rest of the season, then happy days. Really, I didn't feel at all. I don't know about you, Callum. I didn't feel at all nervous. I mean, they put together some decent attacks, Sheffield United, but I never at any point felt really worried. Maybe for a 5-10 minute spell in the second half, but other than that, and it got to the stage where I thought we were going to score. I was right at the front. I said, I'm going over here. I'm leaping over here if we score. And sure enough, I did. I sort of waddled over. But I felt. I was really quite disappointed. I think I was expecting obviously big crowd, 30,000 crowd, expectant homecoming or the third coming or whatever of Chris Wilder, and it was really. I think we contained them. I think after the first 5 or 10 minutes, when I knew it wasn't going to be Loftus Road 2.0, I thought we were really, really comfortable. But Reece was really elegant, actually, if I can say that. He's exceptional.
I think what we did was, and to be fair, you've mentioned Burke and Bell there, and I actually don't take away from Lloyd Jones either, because I thought he was actually really good as well.
Absolutely.
And I made the point after QPR, him and Ramsey both looked as if they'd been out the night before. They were both so poor. And that's two players who, we don't criticise as fans because they've been so consistently excellent. But I looked at that yesterday and I went, if I'm Nathan Jones on Saturday, do I change Bree or Burke? Do I keep Kane Ramsey on the bench? Do I? And Nathan Jones made a really interesting point when Reece Burke came in, and it was because the media did what the media should have done. And they asked him, but Burke's injury history, and he went, I kept him fit. And I looked up, he did. They played 34 games for him at Luton. And I went, just maybe it's the way that, and Luton fans sort of said it, there were games where they had no centre-backs. He was sort of 90% of the way back. They just had to play him. But Bell sort of the same thing. He just had to play when they probably weren't 100% fit. And I look at that and I go, and it's kind of a good point from Stuart here again about Phil Famaka, because I think he's in the same sort of boat of, all of a sudden you have sort of five centre backs that we've got, isn't it? It's 5. You can play any of them and you feel reasonably comfortable. I would think playing any of them, and you've got a goalkeeper who, maybe the first 5 games weren't perfect, or there's a history of playing well in this league. You've got a left back that's taken to the Championship like a duck to water, and you've got a right back who Nathan Jones said, I love this bloke. He came in, played game in like 20 minutes. And the first one he was okay. I thought it looked good against Millwall. wasn't maybe exceptional. And then yesterday or Saturday, I keep thinking it's Sunday still. he put in he put in a performance which won him club man of the match. And you go, in Nathan Jones we trust, I guess.
Absolutely, and you're right. I mean, I didn't mean to do Lloyd a disservice. It's just
not at all. You just get used to
Lloyd Jones is Lloyd Jones, isn't he? He just does what he does. He does Lloyd Jones things. But as I say,
Commentary's in the same boat, isn't he? It's the same.
He is.
You know what they are.
Exactly. They're metronomic. They turn up 8 out of 10, 7, 8 out of 10 every week. I mean, going back to the squad though, I mean, we used to get bodies in 3-4 years ago just to sort of pad the squad out. But if you looked beyond even the first 11, we were in big trouble. If one person or two people went down. Now we've got a squad worthy of the name. We've actually got competition, which is what we need. It's sad. I mean, obviously, Mackie did a fantastic job. He'd always go down in Charlton folklore for scoring the winner at Wembley. But there are better all-round players, and we have to accept that. And the difficulty will be, as I know you said before, is keeping everybody happy. But the good thing is they all seem to have a good spirit. I mean, Tanto obviously came in, scored, and he was quite honest. He said, I've been to the manager, and Nathan even said himself, afterwards, I know Tanto's been up, champing at the bit to get in. But I think Tanto's humble guy, and he'll whatever happens next week, he'll carry on. And as I say, I think they've got a really good spirit, which I think really helps. I can't see any sort of bad apples in the barrel from what I can see. And I think that's what you need. You need a squad that's putting in the right direction. And whoever gets called up, as I say in the NFL, next man up. And that's what we're gonna, that's what we've got. But as I say, it's we've got a wonderful, a surfeit of quality now, particularly in the back line, which is fantastic, and it's a luxury. And hopefully we can keep them all fit and firing. And whoever is called upon to step in, whatever time, can do that, and we can, as I say, so it's happy days. I don't want to jinx it, Callum. I'm getting too enthusiastic.
It really is the classic. Like it's freaky how much, and not just the players, right? Because I get it. Bell, Jones, Burke, Bree. Going further up, there are other players as well. You look at it and go, yeah, it does look a little bit like Luton by name. Kaminsky never played for him at Luton, so that's a bit of a red herring. That was just because he's the best keeper available at the time for the cost. But you look at that team besides the players, and you go, that just looks like Nathan Jones's Luton at Championship level, right? Really difficult to beat. They'll beat you in a moment. You don't want to come to the Valley. It's not fun, right? You don't want to, you don't want us to come to your ground. It's not fun unless you're QPR, because that was a bad day. But it's sort of one of those things. You look at those games coming up, and you go, if I'm Blackburn, I'm like, oh. No one's going to look at that and go, oh, great. I'm going to go and play Charlton. I've got to go and deal with a manager of that quality at this level. And if he wins, he's going to go and fist bump, and he's going to annoy me, right? And he's going to sort of trigger all of us, and it's a bit of a. But like. It's the sort of thing where it's like you look at it and it's and we should have probably closer to 12 points than 8. And I've been told on many an occasion the minimum we should have is 9, because the goal against Leicester should have stood. Yes. But other than that, you look at it and you go, we're sat in 11th through 6 games. And I know the position doesn't really matter until you're 10 or 15 games in. We're sat in 11th. We're comfortably above. Where that bottom 3 is in terms of performances, I would say, and you look at what we're doing. It's very much he's just gone, here's how it works at Luton, let's do the same thing. And quite frankly, I think he's getting quite similar results out of it. I think that there still are problems up front, and I'd be really interested in this. I didn't get a chance to watch the Chronicles. I'm actually going to go and listen to it later. But again. Like Callum got a shot off this time. I don't know if he should have done better. It's actually quite a difficult chance on your weak foot. But you look at some of the chances we missed yesterday, and you just think, we can't keep missing them, right? Cooper shouldn't be making that save. I know he did, and it's an exceptional save, and all the rest of it. But you're 2 yards out. You should be putting that in the bottom corner. And I know we all want to be really, really positive, but there is, I think, a little bit of concern. We don't look massively dangerous, I would argue, until oftentimes we make the sub, because we need a big boy up front. And I'm still not seeing it with that front 2 working. But I'd be interested to get your perspective on that particular conundrum.
I think the flip side, Callum, is that you've got to be there to get the chances. So I think actually we probably had more chances in that game, and someone will tell me that I'm wrong. I'm sure we had more goal-mouth incidents, or certainly more headers and shots than we've had previously. So the fact that people are getting there, particularly the likes of Lloyd and the likes of Doc, I think is a positive. We'll obviously talk about lineups later, but I'm a sort of 4-4-2 man, big man, little man up top, as I said yesterday, as you'll hear me say. So as I say, it will be an interesting sort of conundrum as to how that happens. But as I say, I think that was the first game of the season I felt. Of the 6 that I thought we were starting to sort of see some momentum. We're starting to push the boulder up the hill. So there are still things to work on. There are still passes going awry. But I felt that, Charlie seemed to be getting himself into sort of goal scoring positions. He made a bit of a cross at one point, which no one got on the end of. So I think there are still sort of teething troubles. But I think with the defence sorted out, with the midfield starting to sort of motor, Doc and Cov are really playing exceptionally well. They're consistent. It's just that forward, isn't it? It's just what we do. What do we do with a conundrum like Tyrese, for example, the real Tyrese Campbell, for example. And there are still things to sort out. I think he was the better Tyrese Campbell, by the way.
Best word of the day, other than you're getting sacked in the morning, which was pretty funny.
Absolutely, it was a crack.
That you're just a Tyrese Campbell was quite
exactly.
I think for the really interesting thing, and I'm sure we can talk about in a little bit, is very much what on earth happens when Matty Godden comes back. Right?
Yeah.
And Nathan's made it clear Luke Berry is next week after, by the sounds of things, he'll be back. If I'm him, I'm looking at it and going, how do I get myself back to Cambridge in January? Because there just isn't a spot, right, for a player that I actually like quite a lot.
Yeah, absolutely.
And I remember last season on the Chronicles, you did a lot of. He's not Emma's type of player. I get that. And I get why Carey is more her type of more sort of all-action midfielder. For me, I think there is a value to have a player like a Berry who can finish chances that very few number 10s can. But the thing is, you look at it and you go, yeah, but I bought Nibs to do that. Right? Because Nibs can do that. So you're in a sort of world where it's like, okay, I've got these players coming through, and both Godden and Berry are, you've got Stuart here saying, I don't want Berry in the side, and that's fair enough. Right? I can understand why people say that. But I think that, as we always say on this podcast, everybody's opinion is valid. I might disagree with you.
Mine is more valid than others. No, not really. But no, with Berry, I made the argument, as you probably heard me droning on last season on the Chronicles, as I do, that I felt that some of the games just didn't suit Luke, because he's more of he obviously, he's very athletic, but he's also more of a finesse player as far as I'm concerned. I just think, he needed to be, he's not an in the trenches type guy. He'll do the pressing and he'll work hard. Don't get me wrong, but I felt he'd be, he's the person. And again, I'll use the cliche: the guy that can unlock the door, the key that can unlock the door. Be creative. So I'm hoping with more expansive league and better quality that actually he will actually thrive in the league once he comes back. But you're right. We could potentially have the same embarrassment of riches up front that we've actually got in the back line. So if Goddard comes back, Luke comes back, Harvey's starting to get into his stride. You talked about Sonny. You got Rob Apter, who was dropped as well. That was quite a big decision for some people, but I think in retrospect it was a masterstroke. But again, he's there. Well, absolutely. So we'll have to see Stuart, because obviously last season he didn't influence the games. He had that cracking goal against Wickham, didn't he? We topped them 4-0. I think he scored twice away at Barnsley. But they were sort of the relatively.
We don't talk about Barnsley on this podcast. That was a very painful memory, because as I was stood in that stand, and he was on the other side of the Oakwell, and I bet you he could hear me shouting at Will Mannion, "Sit your what down," and he did not do it, and it will forever bother me.
Yeah, well,
there's ever been a game where he needs a little bit of tactical nous. That was the one.
Yeah, well, we'll move on swiftly in that case. But as I say, apart from that,
the Stevenage goal for me actually is the one when I think Luke Berry. That's the one. Because number 10s in League One level do not finish that. That is.
Yeah, no, there is that. So he got in those great positions, but I think it's more his sort of general all-round play, really. Actually making things happen in the midfield was linking up, being in the hole, or whatever the cliche is. So I'm confident that when he comes back, and hopefully he'll be fit soon enough, that we can see him really show his quality. He just wasn't able to do that in a lot of some of those slugfests last season. So when things are a bit more open, and he'll be allowed to show his skills, but we'll see. Obviously, I could quite understand people being a bit cynical, because he just didn't demonstrate what he was bought for most of the time.
Sorry, go ahead.
No, I was going to say. Obviously, Sonny, Rob. Again, it's you're looking at a proper squad now. You're looking at Fotmod. There's two, three sort of players for each position, and that's exactly what we want. So exactly. We're just not used to it, are we? It's like I said, getting bodies in from we were shopping at sort of Aldi or whatever, with respect, we're sort of going towards Waitrose, I would say. I don't want to sort of
Are we
overrate
quite
it.
Waitrose in that Birmingham? We're more at Tesco, I think.
Well, I don't know. We'll see. I mean, hopefully, I think you're keeping it real. I think you're keeping it real, Callum, which is probably wise. I'm just, but as Tommy said, we're in nosebleed territory. We're 2 points off the playoffs. I mean, come on, and it's only 6 games gone, but still, if you think about how things have been the last 2-3 years, we've been looking at
eight points from those first 6. When you looked at those fixtures, if somebody had told you lost at home to Leicester, you lost away at QPR, you would go, okay, I sort of understand that, right? If you got a point against Millwall, okay, well, we didn't lose. It's frustrating to us remembering it. You remember the Leicester game, frustrating. Bristol City was an excellent point, right? Just literally 2 points dropped because of one of the best saves you'll ever see. That VTech finger onto the post.
Yeah.
In a game where again we just didn't look like we were going to concede a goal, right? Watford, the 2 penalties cancel each other out. Great last minute goal. I'd very much like to score a couple of goals in the 60th minute just for my cardiac health. But I'm not sure Nathan does cardiac health. I actually think your point you're making about Bayes is really interesting, not because of Berry, but because I think it actually reflects another player, and a player that just got himself a contract extension, which was basically to buffet up his salary, as we learned, which is actually, I think Roy Anderson's better suited for this level than he is for League One, which I know sounds really, really weird, because technically he still misses some things, right? Yeah. Definitely, he's not got a great first touch, he's not got a great range of passing, but actually coming in to play that Doc role in games, if Doc is tired or whatever it is, like we sort of heard that news this week that we got the top EFL Academy. Thank you very much, we appreciate that. Right, by productivity, we've got Kanu and Bick scoring goals on the weekend down in League 2. We've got Nathan Sinway being an absolute revelation at League 1 level at Wimbledon. That I wasn't expecting. But they gave him a contract extension before he left, just in case this happened. And you kind of look at, we brought in a keeper that's really well regarded from his time in the academy at Wolves, as a U18. I think Henry Riley's just signed a contract extension. The only youth player that really needs one is Tyrese Campbell, and I think it's probably going to be really similar to the Miles thing, which is he wants to know, hey, are you going to be in the championship next year? But you look at it and you go, all of a sudden, it's when you actually invest to keep those talents, them playing as squad players and rotating in and out, right? There's a lot less pressure on a Leeburn, right? Nathan Jones can rage at him for not chasing a ball, right? Without it looking like without it being the end of the world. Because they're only having to play for 20 minutes, half an hour. TC, I think, is a different sort of question. We've got Dixon at, scoring goals for Crawley. It was against the under-21s, though, wasn't it, for whichever side they were playing. But you look around and it's like all of a sudden it just... I said this a lot. It feels like a different football club, and I think, so much of that credit has to go to the fact that... those California billions are actually quite nice.
No, absolutely. They're real billions, not paper billions. Exactly. Yeah.
Thanks, Joshua Friedman. We appreciate your service. We're going to have a new screen in October, right after the October break. It's just a lot. The women's team's doing well. I know they dropped points yesterday, but everything just feels like it's moving in a direction where you can actually get behind it. And I don't know about you, but it has not felt like that at this club for such a long time, where you just sit there and go, oh, I don't have to get up and worry about Charlton doing something stupid today.
Exactly.
I can moan about the beer queue, I can moan about the beer queue or ticketing or, like that stuff where it's like moaning about that stuff should, shows you just where we are. And it's going to be really interesting. We kind of get towards the Sheffield Wednesdays of the world and the derbies of the world. Derby haven't been through it. Sheffield Wednesday going through it, right? Just how darn lucky we are to have gotten to a circumstance where, it just feels like Charlton again, right? Absolutely. And it's been so long.
Well, as you say, it's been a long time coming, hasn't it, really? I mean, really, since they dropped out of the Prem, that's nearly 20 years ago, hard to believe, that things just obviously started happening, from sort of 2010 or whatever onwards, and obviously with sort of, I suppose he's a current owner still, isn't he, unfortunately? But yeah, absolutely. And I think it's great to see the academy thriving. And I think particularly if you're having to, maybe Miles is having to step out or is dropped or is rested, and you see one of your friends from the academy stepping in, then of course you're going to be wanting them to do well, So that's all more power to them. I just think it's just, like I said earlier, I mean, I think there's a good harmony within the squad. There are no. I mean, I think I don't know enough about
the no jerks policy, as Nathan Jones said, with the different.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, I think there may have been an issue with gas. I mean, I know there are other things going on behind the scenes for him, which are very difficult for him. But I never felt that he was particularly almost like a charm player, if you will. I just felt he was slightly perhaps on his own. We might disagree on that. I think he was somewhat unlucky, particularly getting his injury.
I don't think he was as bad as people said he was either, Paul. Stuart, you're right.
No,
And just to bring this up, because Stuart's saying a Renard's gone into owners of Arsenal, Rich and the Barrelsons as an example. Joshua Friedman himself, go look up the hedge fund that he owns, and this is one guy. He owns the most of the minority shares. But go look him up. Almost any other club, he's a majority owner with no problem at all. I mean, they've signed off when they bought the club. They agreed to pay 10 years of losses. Right, it's in the contract. Absolutely. Right, there's 130 million quid. They agreed just to fund.
Entirely scraping around the back of the sofa for very loose changes either. So we've actually got two.
I mean, Fofana, there was money available when it came available, and that's a Premier League wage, right? So the thing is, and they've said there's money in January. They're doing loads of stuff at the ground. I think anyone saying, I said this so many times on this podcast, anyone thinking they're not going to buy the ground, just look at what they're doing to it.
Well, now we're dealing with Roderick rather than his father, who seems to be a bit more of a can-do guy. It might take a year or two.
It's a I want to get out guy. That's what it is. He wants to go. He's got no interest in this stuff.
Roland's in the 80. I mean, come on, Roland, just put your feet up. I mean, some of it's obviously vindictive from Roland.
It's a 2030 break clause, I think, is the time, but I've been told is the time to.
So
technically they can redo the rent or whatever, but they say, look, 500 grand a year for a stadium in London.
Exactly.
It's less than, I think it's 300 grand.
That's like, no, you're right. It is. But I mean, if it's 5 years, I mean, I would have thought 5 years. That's a reasonable time to wait, isn't it?
I think they want the club to buy it because otherwise you just have another billionaire that owns your ground, and you can't,
True.
Unfortunately, as wealthy as he may or may not be, I don't think he wants to be donating 50 million quid to it.
No, that's right. Well, I mean, 50 million quid. I mean, we're not talking Knightsbridge. With respect, we're talking New Elton and Charlton. So, I mean, you're talking London, of course. You're talking millions built, millions. Maybe 20 million, 25 might be more realistic. 50 million was always ludicrous. And it was almost like you're never going to reach this anyway, so sort of attitude I always thought from Roland. But as I say, 5 years, I mean, it would be incredible to get the assets earlier.
As far as Lane's much easier. That I don't think they're very worried about. They came in or just started putting new equipment in. They were like My favourite story is the doctor when they came in and supposedly went they were like walking around the stadium, and you could suppose kind of going to Methven and Andy Scott. They were going, we bought this thing because you said it was a good investment. They're going, why is there paint missing? Right. And it's the sort of stuff where it's like they redid all the signage, they've redoing all the floodlights. Like a lot of the stuff has just been like paying to fix stuff that's just been left. Right. And that takes a huge amount of money that they didn't need to spend the money at League One level. But we were just talking about Luke Berry, right? One of the highest paid players in the division last year. If you take Birmingham out and Wrexham out of the equation, right? Godden was really highly paid as a former Championship player. But it just feels like, okay, let's move forward. The Miles thing wasn't a big drama. That surprised me, how easy that seemed to be. Right? That's a player that I would have thought would have gone, is there an offer? Tyrese Campbell's had interest from levels above, and they've held firm. Right? If the manager doesn't want the player to go, the player's not going. It would not shock me. I know this is going to really surprise people. It would not shock me if Kane Ramsey ends up signing a contract extension in the next 12 months or so.
No, absolutely not. No, it wouldn't surprise me either, to be honest.
I don't think he's a Prem player yet. I know that we probably all got a bit hyped, but I think watching Saturday, you went, oh, other players at this level can play. Because my worry was that sort of, to go back to that, was that hybrid right back, centre back role that I just thought was quite specialised. Reece Burke went, yeah, I can play that.
Yeah.
It's like,
absolutely.
Yeah, why not?
Take it and run with it. Easy. Get the cigars out. Yeah. Cheers.
He was like, this is fine by me.
Absolutely. But I think. I mean, obviously, someone made a comment about maybe pushing going for the assets. I mean, I think they've certainly pushed out the transfer window. It's the first transfer window in years where we felt actually we're covering needs here. We're buying players not because they're kind of available and they're on a free. Permanently injured, we're actually getting players that can actually do a job and can fit in. We've obviously been surprised how quickly Sonny and Rob, for example, fitted in. I thought they might be sort of on the bench for a while, but they just crashed the party really. from the off. So, but then you've got those more proven championship level players like Reece, obviously James Bream latterly, Marley. And it's like we've got like I said, we've got a squad now that can go forward, but we still, and you feel that actually if Nathan needs another 2 players in say January, then you feel he can go out and do it. So I mean,
conversations about stadiums on the peninsula. I think that's gone straight because I think the developers have officially bought all that land now. The weird thing about the Valley, and I always say this to people, there's basically a thing on the council after the Valley Party, after all the moving stuff. The reason why Deuce had such a problem, other than the fans, was actually that they put basically a designation on it which said it's only for football, which meant you couldn't knock it down and build loads of high-rises. And also there's lots of homes there and people were quite annoyed by that possibility. So it's actually a really weird one. They've got some leverage of you can't do anything else with this anyway. You might as well sell it to me. But it's a bit of a strange thing. It goes into sort of local council politics and all the rest of it in Greenwich, which is only ever going to be Labour. But those councillors don't want to deal with another lot of Charlton fans being irritating, and sort of causing a ruckus. And also, I think Tommy has such a good point, right? We did fight so hard to get back there. I think almost all of us are family members who quite literally went and helped dig it out, right? And that's, it's such an important thing for.
It is. I mean, obviously, Cast went and got it. Cast went and got it registered as an ACV, that's a community value, which I think is important.
That's what it is. Yeah.
Yeah. So that's right. I mean, I wouldn't. Would I be opposed to a move to a new stadium? Probably, I would actually, because I'm an old sentimental farm.
And I'm not an old fart, but I have sentimental attachment.
Yeah, so but as I say, I can understand, if it was going to be for the benefit of the club, brand spanking new stadium would obviously get us out of the RDR, whatever, grip or whatever. But as I say, I think if there was no light at the end of the tunnel, and it was going to be 10 years, 15 years, or whatever you can whistle, then perhaps that changes the game. But I think things are in sight. Yeah. Yeah, me and you both, Tommy. But yeah, no, absolutely. It's just, I think things are in sight now. So much is coming together. I keep feeling I must be on the Kool-Aid, Callum, because it's just so good, compared to what we've had. There's always been something to really moan about, always concerns about, the quality of the squad, people not wanting to play for the club, losing our best players, all the rest of it, shopping at, as I said, bargain basement.
Letting the kids go for not nowhere near enough, right? The console one is such a good example. If you take Lookman out of it and the fact that we didn't reinvest that money and all the awfulness of that yacht and all the rest of it, Concer's the one actually is probably the most painful. The Gomez one, they took a risk that the sell-on fee would happen. It just hasn't, and, for different reasons. And his injuries probably have tanked that value a bit. But I have a former friend of mine who played with him and said he can knock a 40-yard pass at the age of 11, and he just went, right, I'm never going to be good enough. Yeah, literally just onto someone's foot.
You can tell at that age.
But Lookman, and there's a really good thing. So I was actually going to move the conversation to this thing, which has actually been some of the criticism that you do see of the academy kids. And I was sort of making the point. I don't know if I was actually making the point to Corley actually on Substack, but I was going. I think sometimes you look at it and you go, Miles Lee-Burn, Tyrese Campbell, Corey Anderson, right? They were all free, right? We paid no money for them except for the fact that we trained them up.
Yeah.
Right? If they just spend 6 months in the championship, they're worth a couple of million minimum each. Players like Tyrese and Miles and Corey are seen with much bigger sort of futures outside of Charlton than they are, I think, with the fan base. And I think part of the problem is that people don't realise that even if I take Gomez, Concer, and Lookman, right, they were spread over an almost 10-year period, right? You have three players, and Gomez, yes, has gone on to win anything and everything, and fair enough, right? Concer's the starting centre back for England, right? Lookman is, sixth? Was it 16th? 6th for Ballon d'Or? 16th?
Something like that.
Right? There's a Ballon d'Or candidate, for goodness sakes, right? Hat-trick in a European final, Africa Player of the Year. Right, way to go England, letting that one slip through your fingers. But it's one of those things where you look at it and you go, I think sometimes people don't realize those are rare.
Oh, absolutely.
We're chock-a-block. We've got two kids playing for Jamaica every single international break, right? At 19 and 20, We've got another lad who's 6'6" and has the technical ability of a player who's about 5'7", right? And they all need work. But I look at it and I go, but this is a manager that brings players like this through. Yeah, he likes his lads, but he's trying to turn Miles Liebman into a presser, right? Which I would have laughed at in the Appleton years. If you in the Appleton mentor, somebody said we're going to turn him into a pressing machine. Can he do it? I don't know, but I think that having these players on long-term contracts means they don't have to start every week. You take the pressure off, right? Let the experienced guys do the things that they need to do, and give Croy 15 minutes at the end of the game. And as you get closer, if you can get yourself into a position like Portsmouth did last year when they were safe by about early April, then you can play these kids in these championship games and give them those sort of pressure environments. But for now, like we used to have to play these kids. Yes. Now we can play these kids, and that I think is the difference, and that's what I think they're trying to get to. And I'm going to be so interested to see what, if we can find a way to stay up. And I don't think we look like a team that's going to go down just defensively.
Yeah.
What they decide to move into next summer, whether they do sort of a consolidation like Portsmouth did and say, look, okay, we're going to turn the spending taps off a little bit and sort of try to consolidate, or whether they go, we're going to push. If I know anything about American billionaires, it's only going to be the second option.
Yeah. Oh, absolutely.
These guys want success. They enjoyed that day at Wembley, right?
Oh, absolutely.
And they like walking around with fans. They like being the heroes, right? Like,
oh yeah. Well, let's massage their egos. They're not playing guitar, so
no, there's no guitars. They don't talk to us.
But I think let's see where we are in January, Callum. I mean, I can see them, as I say, if we're still up. I can see them. Well, whether we're up there or whether we're not, I can see them getting the alreadys out again. But to your point again about made a good point, obviously, about Miles and turning him into a presser. Miles is looking round and he's seeing these seasoned pros who are not shy about doing the dirty work and heavy lifting. If you look at Doc. I should be on Colt's Christmas card list because I took 2 years off his life or 2 years off his age yesterday. I say he was 23, he's actually 25, but he's still a young guy, but he's building up his experience and he's not afraid to do the spade work and run here and there and everywhere. So you've got all sorts. I mean, we talk about TC. I mean, he will run as long as the day is there. And it's so. I mean, Miles can look around and see, well, these guys are doing it. I can't afford to slacken off. And I've also got the manager bellowing in the ear.
He's not going to play if you don't do it when Godden's back. You're not in the squad.
Yeah,
he really likes Miles. He said one of the reasons he took the job was other than complete pity for how awful we were, and an actual need for us to not be in League Two, and sort of there's a famous thing.
Lowest common denominator, basically. Yeah, no, I mean, I think
Miles was a big.
Yeah, we've said all before. I mean, Jonesy will give you chances if you take them. We love you for it. Well, he might pat you on the back and love you for it. You know what I mean? He won't be effusive in his praise, but he actually will. Actually, to be fair, if you've earned it. But if you don't take your chance, woe betide. You'll be almost as good as the dead to him, essentially, or you'll be in the cooler for 2 months.
Well, that's ranking Costello at the moment, isn't it? Yeah. He can't get in the team, but you can't blame him because if he's to spot Coventry. Yeah, that's not happening. We've got a couple of Saturday, Tuesdays coming up, so I think you'll probably see that rotation. It probably makes who starts on Saturday, quote or quote, less important because you're not going to play Burke Saturday, Tuesday. So it wouldn't surprise me he sticks with it and then goes over and changes that back to Ramsey for the game away at Derby. Stuart, how are the sports science clubs in America doing? Brenner was the owner of the Houston Dynamo, but he was a sole owner, I think. He sold it a couple of years ago. I haven't seen anything about Friedman. If I'm not mistaken, was he an investor in one of the basketball teams? I have to look this up.
He was. I can't remember actually. It was the Mavericks or something. But I mean, they're certainly not the Gillette Hicks and Gillette job because they were obviously all mouth and not much trouser really for Liverpool. In fact, they trouser quite a lot, but they didn't.
I tell you, people who don't talk to me, right? But actually, and when they do, because you look at the executives, you go, Gavin Carter's a Charlton fan. Right, you look at the chairman of the board; he's a Charlton fan. He's been a Charlton fan his entire life. Right, to have someone like that who, Ed Warwick comes across as a decent enough guy.
He's very bright.
They're walking around. They said before the Leicester game, we will go and walk around and see what's going on in the beer queue. As I get out at half time, guess who's walking around? Ed Warwick having a look and making sure. Right,
silent assassin. Exactly. Noting it all
But
down.
do what you say you're going to do, and I think that's the thing that
Exactly.
probably for us as Charlton fans is probably scared is you had your Sandguards and your ESIs and you're making all these promises.
BS, exactly. Yeah,
right?
I mean,
But actually, they didn't have the money.
Exactly.
These guys have the money, and
that.
that's the difference, right? Like Joshua Friedman, 12 million quid for a summer. All right, like really doesn't matter.
Yeah, I mean, it was a cliche, the adults in the room. I mean, Ed Warwick's baby faced, but he's anything but baby faced, and he's very, very bright indeed. You can tell that.
Cutthroat as they're as cutthroat as anything. If you look at the way they've done the Methven and Scott thing, and you can really re-examine the Andy Scott years and go, actually, bought us Ramsey, Coventry.
So when Methven was here, they used to do the YouTube thing. I mean, Gavin would be together. And I always felt that Gavin was almost sidelined by Methven. And I thought, Methven was giving it all the blarney. And I just thought, interesting. Gavin's sort of sitting there. He's been made to feel uneasy. Sure enough, Gavin's been given his head and he's actually carried things out. It's been a bit A2 brute, as it were. It's a sort of silent assassin, really. And that's what we need.
Bringing people like Sutherland back, right? You've got Varney's doing some stuff. Stephen Avery's basically been told, hey, whenever you want, Stephen Avery basically still works 3 days a week for the academy.
He does, yeah.
This is a guy who quote unquote retired to still work most of the week because he loves it.
His wife pushed him back and said, "No, I don't want you under my feet." But no, but you're right. I mean, when Steve came back, and I think Steve was on. I think it might be on the Chronicles or whatever, one of our sort of guests, plug or whatever, shameless. But he was saying when he walked in the door, he said he was angry and sad because he saw how the commercial department had been gutted by the previous ownership. So it's great to have Steve back. He's Charlton all over. He's had his different spells, but he's proven in terms of his abilities. And I don't think Steve will ever leave the club, but he'll always be there in some capacity. He'll obviously see the matches, but I'm sure they need these sort of people. People were calling for sort of Peter Varney to sort of come back at some point. It just didn't work out. But it's good. We've got Curbs. Curbs is obviously around with Charlton TV, but I'm sure Curbs is. Certain owners wouldn't want to sort of, plug Curbs for information. It would be sort of below them or whatever. But,
Varney's listened to, right? They have Varney do some, when Varney speaks, they listen and that makes sense.
That's what the current lot do, obviously. They've got it right. Whereas previously, certain previous owner, Danish American, they wouldn't want to listen. It was his way or the highway. He had no CEO. He was the man. So now they, as I say, the adults are back in the room, thankfully. We're actually got decision makers who are able to make decisions, which is kind of logical, isn't it? But we've not had that for quite some time. All over the shop. All around the place.
Managers, academy managers, like Jason Pearson, academy manager, great hire.
You need Jason, Pearson. You need those sort of players. They are the backbone. They've been there and done it. They've got so much experience to. Those young guys in the academy. Getting all Pearce's experience. Unbelievable for them, and he's been there, seen it, done it, been at a variety of clubs. Skipper wherever he's gone, a proper leader. How many saves, how many times have we said in the past, where are the leaders, not only on the pitch, but off the pitch too? And we're full of sort of leaders, people who've also got the well-being of the club at heart. They're not coming here to flip, to make up a quick buck. Not they don't
need to, right? They will be investing because they think there's a return. But Friedman did a thing where they did like a bit of a tax thing. It's called I'm not going to get into it because it's a big, long, boring thing. But basically, in Delaware, most US companies are based in Delaware because you don't have to do like tax.
It's all the Isle of Man of the US sort of thing, yeah.
Basically, So you'll find like these humongous companies in this tiny state. But basically, Friedman put his part of SE7 Partners into Delaware, and then moved it over to his kids. Moved part of it. It's all for tax reasons. But so in terms of longer term, it's a weird thing to move it to your kids if your aim is to do a quick flip. And also, they're here all the time, right? You'll see them. They're around. They're at Millwall. Yes. They're not always all going to be here, but they come for weeks of meetings. That they are committed, and that's kind of that's the main thing. It is the Mavericks. I've just looked it up. Paul, you're absolutely right. It is the Mavericks who did some investment in, and the Mavericks are okay minus the weird Luka Doncic trade. Stuart, Varney's just doing a bit of advising. I don't know if it's official, but he said it before he's chatting to someone. He was saying, I'm asking my opinion, and and these are people you should ask. Like they haven't made a huge number of stupid decisions, and I think that's the
Yeah.
thing, is that helps you. They came in at a club that was, it, you know, the richest human being on planet Earth. About to say could take his own. I realized that was Elon Musk and decided to park that. But the most gregarious sort of owner could. We keep it apolitical on here. But the most gregarious, wonderful owner could take us over, and we all would have sat there and gone, "Oh my god, oh my god, oh my god." Yeah, and we're going, this isn't going to work. But they've just gone and after
Well, I
that
think
horrible first year,
you can't be too proud to ask for advice. I mean, if you look at all the sort of tycoons, captains in the industry, they're able to delegate. They will always say that it's not just about succession planning, but they have people below them who they seek counsel from. They're not. It's not my way or the highway, as it was with the previous owner, for example. I've already mentioned. This is like you come into a football club. You spend a lot of money. You're looking to people for advice to say, what do you think? The likes of Steve Sutherland or Curbs or whoever, Peter Varney, to say, well, is this going to be what do I need to do? And we talk about the manager, cliche about making yourself the best version of yourself and all that sort of stuff. How can I make this club the best version of itself? What do we need? What do we need to do? What decisions do we need to take? I might sign it off. It might be Gavin or the owners signing it off. But there'll be a lot of discussion that goes into all of that, and they'll think it through in a proper, salient way before they actually take the decisions. Not sort of scattergun, weird and wonderful schemes that we've seen previously. Settees on the pitch and all that. Sort of
on this point, Stuart, just ask Andy Scott and Charlie Methven where they are currently, and I think that will answer your question in terms of Down South for Fools.
Exactly. I mean, that's the point, and that's where we go back to the catering. Because we were all taken for mugs on that first day against Watford. It was absolutely appalling and disgusting. I don't know how you would think. You're the firm providing the catering. First day of the season, Premier service. It might go a bit on during the season, but first day of the season, I want this. This is Championship. This is our chance to display our wares, our staff, our reputation. And they trashed it. They trashed it themselves. And obviously Gavin was not happy. You could tell he was very unhappy.
Gavin was absolutely fuming. I mean, Ed made a very, very strong point, I thought, publicly there, because this is a public forum. He went, look, if it doesn't change, we're just going to end the contract. And I thought to myself, I was like, that's when you've got an American Billions behind you, because you can pay your way out. Like, they don't care.
Exactly.
Right? Like, they're not going to end contracts that should, the Castore contract. They ended it early, right? They notified them in like December they were ending it, right? The trigger was something like June. Which is why we didn't have more club stuff in the shop, because Castore had a bit of an ump about it.
Exactly, yeah.
And that was the whole sort of thing. But basically, like these guys are, to take the risk to, whatever you think of whether it's worked or not, to take the risk to go with like a Reebok, right? To do this sort of stuff is like they're trying. And I think the one thing I will say is that Tan was never going to pay the compensation for Nathan Jones. I don't know if anyone heard the story, but they asked if they could pay it in 5 installments, and we thought it was absolutely hilarious. Yeah.
Tim Pot. Talk about Tim Pot.
What? It's Tan at Cardiff. I don't blame Nathan Jones. That's his childhood club, right? He's not going to come out and say, I don't want to go there. But they also did. Like, you don't sign a 5-year contract extension where you're at. If your club comes in, if you're thinking, this isn't going to work. Like, they've clearly given him a budget which is sizable. I've never seen a manager, quite honestly, at Charlton come out at the end of a transfer window and go, well, that was quite good, wasn't it? It's like we spent quite a bit of money.
Well, look, you don't become a billionaire by wasting your money and spaffing up the wall, or whatever. These guys are serious players. But they won't. Again, they won't. They won't dole their money out like confetti. It needs to be earned in a sense. So Nathan spent it wisely. Obviously, the catering's back on track. I'm sure they were.
Reebok's done a good enough job. I think.
Yeah, absolutely. So we are, as I say. So we are, as I say, we repeat myself for the 5th time, but we've got adults in the room, people making key decision makers, making key decisions. That's what we need. That's what we've missed. And as I say, long may it continue. It's obviously showing it's the off the field stuff is reaping its benefits on the pitch, which is obviously the most important. That's the most obvious sign of success, isn't it? So
it was very much that point as well. So I think somebody was talking about it where they were sort of going, I was hearing, so I was listening to a little bit of some of the Sheffield United post-match. I was really interested. Almost everybody there said that they, Charlton deserved it, which I thought was really interesting. You could tell that we definitely did. But more than that, I think one of the things is the number of times you heard the word sort of Charlton just from League One, Charlton just from League One. That I think is going to change, because it isn't the Charlton under Bowyer and Powell who, as great as they were, right? I'm sure it's absolutely right. So refreshing. We deserve it, to be honest. Yes, we do.
Absolutely.
And a lot of years of crap, right? And I said it when I said it when they came in, like, because we didn't really know who these people were, and then you saw the name, and if you looked the name up, you went, "It's not that one, is it?" and then the hedge fund popped up, and you're like, "Oh, it's that guy."
Yes, exactly.
Oh, that's
we're not talking some sort of crypto wacko. This is.
Someone did the maths, and it was like Joshua Freeman by himself is the 5th wealthiest owner in the Championship, right? To put that into perspective, Brenner's a billionaire as well. So like these guys they've got money, but as you said, they're not just going to spaff it up the wall, right? And so what they needed was to find a manager who they could go, okay, this guy's going to take us. I mean, they've invested in the women's team, right? Karen's done a good job. They've got a good manager for that level, right? Yeah, there you go. Look, Freeman up, net worth $6 billion.
Yes, so I mean, in some ways, I'm happy.
That. It's gone up, and his hedge fund earned more money last year. But I'm more Brenner up as well. I think he's 1.7 or something.
Yeah, so he's hardly small change, is he? So I'm quite glad that Birmingham and Wrexham have taken all that the highlights, for their sort of various connections. We've sort of slipped in there, gone through won the final. We're seen as like that third club. Well, like you say, as time goes on, we won't be that third club anymore. We'll be established. Wrexham have spluttered a bit. I think they've gone and bought out Josh Windus and whatever, one or two others to plug the gaps.
I think Windus is injured, isn't he? That's a big killer.
Oh, is he really? Because he scored a couple of good goals, and then he's obviously sort of aggravated.
I mean, but they also decided that Danny Ward was a serviceable goalkeeper at this level. And
that cheers me up. That was a head scratcher, wasn't it? Really, to be honest, with respect. But
he's from there, isn't he? So they kind of brought him home. That was my worry, right? When I saw the goalkeepers and people having nothing about Kaminsky, I thought, would I rather have Kaminsky or Ward? Well, I'm not going to even attempt to answer that question. Kaminsky's got his flaws, don't get me wrong. But, I don't know if you've seen the thing where someone was in like the contract on Kaminsky or something. It's like they own £3.5 million or something over the next 2.5 years.
Right.
He's being paid an absolute seismic fortune. So this sort of stuff that I've been reading about Mannion and Brewer and all the rest of it, it's just not going to happen. You're not going to pay him that sort of money. And also they gave him the number one, right? Yeah. He's got the number one shirt, and that's kind of the end of it. I think just before we go, Paul, I mean, I could chat to you for hours. I don't know how much the audience will enjoy us chatting. Being absolute nerds for 2 hours, but maybe they would. But because it's a Monday night, we should definitely get back. And also, we're both sat here in the dark, I think, because we awkwardly don't have time.
Blair Witch, isn't it, really? Yeah, it's just darker and darker.
Illuminated by the screens in front of us.
My yellow teeth are showing up now. I don't need that. No.
Someone on the someone on the bond listening on the pod is going, what on earth are these two going on about?
Exactly.
But I think just before we go, I'd be really interested to find out from you is, firstly, who would you pick for Blackburn? I wouldn't change it. I think the only one that he would think about would be Ramsey coming in. I don't think you need to with Saturday, Tuesday. I think you can get away with playing Burke in there if he's fit, if he's all right.
I think so.
I just can't see you taking him out. I thought Bree was excellent as well. Why would you change? Duff Raptor, player of the month, to not in the squad.
Absolutely,
not 11, right?
Yeah. Well, that is unfortunate.
And then also, my last question to you, Paul, before we go is, when Godden's back, which of the strikers comes out?
Oh, God. Difficult, isn't it?
Question.
I'd agree with you about Saturday. I don't think I'd change it, to be honest. Why bother? I might change a winning team, basically. Obviously, we brought on the finishers. The inimitable Eddie Jones phrase, wasn't it? The Aussie rugby, England rugby captain. But they are. That's right. They by God, they were finishers. They helped us to finish it. But yeah. Yeah, sorry. What was your second question, Callum? Sorry, I was waffling.
When Godden comes back, which comes out.
Yeah, sorry, I saw him actually. I don't know if you saw the photo of him in Docker actually. That's going to go around social media.
Yeah, he was at the Arsenal game, wasn't he, Godden?
Yeah, that's right, absolutely. And these people saying, "Who's that?" Who's that?
My favourite thing is
who's that with Gordon?
He spent all season, God, and I think they probably moved down now back to Kent. But he spent the entire season for all the home games basically staying in a hotel. If you haven't seen his thing on, I think it's Sky Blues Fan TV. If you want to just see a really, really good bloke, right? And I'm not here. I'm at a wedding actually, but when we go to Coventry, if you want to see a welcome back party, like they absolutely love the bloke.
Forward to that. Hopefully, I'll get to
he's a really, really good, really, really good bloke.
Good citizen, yeah.
But he would like stay. He stayed in hotels a lot because his family was still up in Coventry. So he was basically in a hotel waiting for games and different things. And but I look at it and I go, for me, it's really difficult because you look at it and you probably go, Tanto with the minutes. Oh, he scored a goal now, right? You don't take Lieben out. I don't think, not a player of that size because you might need the height. Campbell he loves. Kelman's worth £3.5 million or £3 million or whatever it is. So who?
Again, it's like we said before. It's getting to be. It will get to be that kind of embarrassment of riches, and it's bizarre, isn't it? When you're talking about all this sort of squad depth.
I mean, Berry's not on that bench, surely, right? You look and then you think about that. That is crazy. And that's his comfort blanket. He loves the bloke.
It's nuts. It's nuts. So I mean, like I said to you, I'm sort of 4-4-2 dinosaur. I prefer the big man, little man. So for me, the big man would be Miles, obviously, and the little man, not so little man, should we say, with respect, would be Tanto. It would either be Tanto or Goddard, basically. It would have to be 2 from 3 of that for me.
Yeah, that's fair.
But
I see why he plays Campbell, because he's trying to basically play him as a sort of proto winger, isn't it? He's a winger forward hybrid, and Apter's a right back winger hybrid.
I know.
So it becomes a 4 when you're attacking, but you've only got one up front. And
I know, but I mean, it's always
hard. I think the whole plan was to have Nibs basically in that Lampardy, only use it. I'm not comparing the players, people, but basically just as like that ultimate box crasher, almost as a second striker. I don't think Kerry does that role. Kerry's been great, don't get me wrong.
Yeah, that's right.
But he's not doing that role. Nibs is a goal scorer, right? I think what's called 10, almost was it 10 or 11 for Reading?
I know he got double figures, didn't he? Yeah, exactly. Yeah.
But I mean, it just becomes. I mean, if you're Nathan Jones, you look at that squad and you go, I probably would like one more midfielder if I was him.
Yeah.
But it's not, and I would like one more left back actually, just someone to just in case, just as an emergency. No, but
so you've gone on mute, mate, I think. But yeah, just to mention, obviously, as you know, I really like Josh Edwards, and so I didn't mention Josh, of course, but just to get my customary Josh mention.
Yeah. All right, Paul. Well, it's been an absolute pleasure to have you on. Thank you so much.
Pleasure's been all mine, Callum. It's been great. Thank you.
Been in the chat. And I think we're going to be joined by another, as I say, we're joined by another Chronicles legend on Wednesday to preview the game of Blackburn. It'll be really interesting to get Emma's perspective.
Yeah.
Thanks to Tommy and Stuart, especially in the chat. We will. I'll see you all on Wednesday, be about 6:30. I think I've agreed that with Emma. I'm waiting on a Blackburn podcast. I think there will be one, but we're just waiting on the confirmation. But the other good thing to look forward to, 3:00 kickoff this week. I get my Friday night back. Happy days.
Yeah, brilliant.
Okay, spending Saturday morning in IKEA. Can't wait. All right,
meatballs and all. Yeah, exactly. Whatever.
All right, everybody. Thank you so much. Enjoy the rest of your Monday evening. Once again, thanks, Paul, for coming on such late notice. I've really thoroughly enjoyed that chat. We'll definitely have to do it again.
Likewise.
All the best, everybody. See you later.
Take care, guys.